In episode 5, Bear and Jordan go to arrest the people that are harboring hybrids. Bear's on the lookout, but something just doesn't feel right. They go to investigate further, but the whole place is booby-trapped. Luckily, though, through her training, Bear recognizes them all. But that's when Bear and Jordan are both attacked by Tiger. That's because this entire area was booby-trapped by the animal army. There's no love lost between these two, and Tiger is disgusted by the fact that Bear has joined the last men. They get into a fight, and then eventually, though, they actually get to talking. Bear asks Tiger, "What are you doing here?" And Tiger tells her that they heard about the Essex Zoo and how they're locking up hybrids, so they're going after them. Becky can't believe that Tiger is that dumb, that her plan was just to waltz in and take the hybrids back against Abbott's army. She yells at her, "You're going to get people killed." And Tiger just kind of seems okay with that. She then asks Becky, though, "What are you doing here?" And Becky says the same thing. "I'm going to the Essex Zoo. I'm getting Gus back." Before they can talk anymore, though, Jordan comes out of nowhere and knocks Tiger out. In order to keep her cover, Bear has to go along with arresting Tiger and, quote, taking her in. Meanwhile, at the preserve, Gus could certainly use Bear's help. He's been taken in by Abbott, and Abbott is not as nice as Dr. Singh. Abbott tells Gus, it's only a matter of time before the entire world realizes that the key to a cure is hybrids. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how fast you run. No place will be safe for you. He then asks Gus, "Why do you fight so hard to live in a world that clearly doesn't want you?" And Gus looks him dead in the eye and says, "Maybe it's you the world doesn't want." He then scares the crap out of Gus, though, by telling him that humans have found a use for deer, every single part of the deer. He explains to Gus how exactly they find a cure, by breaking open the bones and taking the stem cells. And then he does something completely horrifying. He cuts one of Gus's antlers off. When they return Gus back to the hybrid pen, Gus is mortified at how he looks. He's scared, and he doesn't want anyone to look at him. When the other hybrids see what Abbott and his men did to Gus, they can't believe it. Gus tries to be strong for everybody else, but it's really tough to do that in that situation. It's actually Wendy who makes him feel better by saying that she read in the preserve that deer grow their antlers back. She then looks at him and reassures him that everybody's getting out and they will be stronger than ever. Abbott, though, is going to do everything in his power to make sure that the hybrids don't escape. After all, he needs them at this point if they are a key to a cure. And it certainly looks that way. Abbott has a big meeting with the other 3 warlords. He's going to pitch him a big idea, and they're coming the next day. In order to get this presentation ready, Singh has to make sure all the information is correct, so he runs one final test with Ronnie, but it turns out that it was a false negative. He runs a few tests, but they all come back positive for the sick. Dr. Singh is distraught at this. He really thought that he had found a cure. But Ronnie looks at it like a positive. She tells Dr. Singh, "You can blow the lid off of everything. You can make Abbott look bad in front of all the other warlords. And what do you think's going to happen when they find out that Abbott dragged them there for something that is a lie?" She feels like if Dr. Singh does this, exposes the lie, then it could lead to their freedom, because Abbott would be no more. But Dr. Singh really doesn't want to undermine him, because he doesn't want the consequences of it. He does, though, consider what Ronnie says, although the next day he meets with Abbott before the presentation, and Abbott's really intimidating when he tells him he can't afford to have anything go wrong. So when these 3 other warlords show up, Dutch, a hippie type named Voss, and probably the most powerful one, Helen, they sit down, Dr. Singh kicks off his presentation, and with Ronnie watching, he sticks to Abbott's script. And Ronnie's really disappointed about this. He doesn't outright say that they found a cure, he dances around the issue, but he doesn't blow the lid off the fact that they still don't have one. And deep down, that's what Ronnie wanted. So all these warlords still think that Abbott found a cure. And what Abbott proposes is a society, a very discreet, exclusive society that will only have a select amount of people in it. Abbott needs all these people because a guy like Voss, he knows how to deal with electricity. He's a hippie type that can deal with solar. Dutch can deal with the water because he lives close to a river. And Helen can deal with the agriculture. But they need to be in lockstep. They need to work together on this. This new idea, which Abbott's calling evergreen, is bold, but if done properly, it just might work. However, what Abbott doesn't know is during this presentation, the hybrids are making their escape. They were able to lure one of the last men in, use his cattle prodder against them, and disable him. They're all following Gus out of the preserve, but then they hit a snag. Teddy the turtle is seen by one of the last men. And in a brave act, Gus decides to sacrifice himself so that the others can escape. He does this by distracting the last man and running through the preserve just like he did before. This draws attention away from the others, but it just doesn't sit well with Wendy. She doesn't want to leave Gus behind. Although the fox hybrid reminds her this is exactly what he wants. He wants us to escape. So reluctantly, Wendy and the rest start to plan on leaving the preserve without Gus. As Gus is running through the preserve, though, he overhears Abbott's presentation. And he's not about to just sit back and let Abbott control the world. So he casually walks in and starts talking to the group, which comes at the surprise of Voss, Dutch, and Helen. They've never seen a hybrid talk before. He looks at all three war leaders and says, "None of us deserve to die for this. We are not the enemy." Abbott tries to get everybody on his side by saying, with one of these hybrids, I can make enough for the cure for everybody in this room. I mean, would you want to die for this? Abbott then commands his men to grab Gus, and Gus once again flees. This time, though, he has help from Johnny. Johnny closes one of the doors to kind of give Gus some time, and Gus once again goes fleeing through the preserve. Abbott knows exactly what Johnny did, and he questions Johnny on why he would do this, and Johnny tells him it's because they're kids. What would Mom say if she was still alive? And Abbott slaps the crap out of Johnny. Gus, though, eventually does end up getting caught by some of the last men and thrown in a more secure location. But he's not alone because Jep is there as well. Jep raced over to the preserve to make it there before Amy, and he was able to. Thankfully, Amy and the rest of the Air Lords had to stop off for gas. This gave Jep enough time to go over, fire a flare gun, and get the attention of the last men. He warns them that Amy is coming in order to curry favor, and says that all he wants in return is Gus, but the last men end up locking him up, as well as Bobby. Bobby picked a real inopportune time to pop his head out of the ground, so they both get caught. But Jep doesn't care because he's once again reunited with Gus, and in the end, that's all that mattered. Now, Abbott wanted to walk his guests out to their cars, but the one he really wanted to talk to was Helen. He knows that in order to get Evergreen off the ground, he needs her support more than any of them. And she tells Abbott, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it with the rest of those idiots. I'm going to want a lot of spots in this thing, and they take up too many. If it's clean water and solar you want, I'll get it for you. And Abbott just needs Helen on his side, so he says, yeah, whatever you want. And that's when Helen's men kill all of Voss's people and all of Dutch's people to eliminate them. Inside the preserve, though, Ronnie and Dr. Singh have it out. She can't believe that Dr. Singh didn't tell the warlords that Abbott was lying. And he didn't want to jeopardize actually being able to find a cure. Because at this point, he is hell-bent on finding a cure. It's all he can think about. He was so close, and he knows with just a little more time, he can do it. Ronnie, however, feels like Abbott and all this work is pulling Singh away from her. And he looks at her and says, I'm trying to save you. But at this point, Ronnie doesn't think it's about her anymore. She feels like it's a lot more than that. Everybody in the preserve, though, then hears an airplane above. And they're pretty surprised because that sort of thing, you don't hear it often. But it's the Air Lords. They drop off a package for Abbott, and it's a radio. And on the front of it, it says, knock, knock. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.